Happy Mamas, to another episode of Happy Mama TV. I'm your host, Patricia Rivera-Wolfson, and today I have the great pleasure of having a friend, Carrie Cardozo, who is known as the Empowerment Priestess. Hi, Carrie.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm really glad to have you here. You have an amazing story that I can't wait for you to share with the viewers. And I think I would like us to start off with a little explanation of what exactly an empowerment priestess does.
Sure. So what I do is I'm actually a psychic business and life coach. So I work with people to help them unlock their power that's hidden within them to really step into the life that they were meant to live, to start the business to have, and to really own their personal power. So I work on all levels. So whether it's in your personal life, relationships, or whether it's in your business life, but it's really uncovering the power that everybody has inside them to own who they are and what they're supposed to be doing.
That's amazing. Anybody who watches the show and also who's as part of my Facebook group knows that I'm so focused on empowering women and certainly stepping into their power. So I think it's so awesome that you've chosen to do that, because that's fantastic.
Thanks.
So I'd like us to talk a little bit about your story, because when we first met and you told me exactly what your story is, it was so unbelievably fascinating. And I think it's a great way to start with the introduction of how you can empower yourself, no matter what your circumstances. So tell us a little bit about your life story.
Yeah, so I do have a very interesting story and a lot of things that have happened. Before I jump into what they are, one of the things that I have been able to learn is that no matter what happens to you, you always have the power to get through it, to overcome it, and to come out a better person. So my story really does start, and I'll just give you an version because it probably could take a really long time to go into all the details of everything that's happened. But my story really probably started when I had realized that I was pregnant, and it wasn't something that I had planned on doing. My parents had to private schools. I was going to a very, very good college to be able to have the best education that I could have, myself up for having this, very six in everybody, in society's eyes, and to have like a head start in the world. So I was 19. I found myself pregnant. And what happened was I got married when I was just right before I turned 20. And I had been together. It wasn't like a shotgun wedding. We had been together for years when I got married. It wasn't what I planned on doing, definitely at the age of 19. And I, motherhood role. So I was very young. My daughter was born just after I turned 20. And I quickly had 3 more children. So my children were all, so 3 kids in 4.5 years. And I loved my children. I really did. But what I found really quickly was I wasn't happy living. I wasn't happy with the role that I was playing. I was married to somebody who just didn't rely on things. So his expectations of what my role was and what I was supposed to do, really didn't sit well inside of me, and what I kept coming up against. So because of the fact that I was so angry and upset and not happy with where I was, I ended up getting very, very sick. At 6, I was diagnosed with cancer. So I had melanoma cancer, and it asked like my skin layer, so the epidermal layer. So I didn't go into my lymph nodes. So I had 3 surgeries three different surgeries to remove it all. And I didn't do any type of chemo or radiation. So that was good. But I think it was just a wake up call of having cancer at such a young age. It was really hard for me. I wasn't a sun worshiper. I wasn't somebody who went outside without sunscreen. I didn't. So to be able to find myself in this situation was now, facing this. And that was just actually one of the medical things that I had going on. I had a lot of heart problems. I had like heart palpitations and issues. And I realized now looking back that it all had to do with the fact of how upset and uncomfortable I was in my life in this situation. So I really decided it really was a wake up call, and it made me take a look at my life and what was going on. And I decided that I just got way anymore. So I ended up, very long story, but I ended up filing for divorce. It wasn't as quickly as this story is. And when I was 28 years old, 29 years old, 3 children, ages 8, 5, and 3, 6 and 3. And it was really scary. It was, for the first time I was really on my own, because I went from, living at home with and now I was finally on my own. So I did that. I went off, I started managing companies. I worked for really big corporate, quote unquote corporate guy who owned 5 businesses, and I managed them all. So I helped him to build businesses up. But in the meantime, he was the person who helped me get through all of the things that I had struggled with in my marriage and with my life. My son had also during that time, during my divorce, very sick. So he helped me get through that. So we ended up falling in love and really planned this life together. Families, we were buying a house, very big house, and we planned out our wedding and everything we were going to be doing. In February of 2014, right when everything in my life seemed to be going wonderful. It was the first, I didn't have, there was no financial issues. I was making really good money. My kids were finally feeling better. I was healthy. I had a secure future, and I had this amazing guy. And I woke up on a Sunday morning to find that he had passed away. Unexpectedly, he was not sick. He had nothing, no indications. I had woken up and I came downstairs to find that he had sat down on the couch in the early mornings, and he never. So that was the biggest wake up call of my entire life, on top of everything else that I had been through. Really eye opener of how short life was. Along with that, about a week after Mike had passed away, I got a phone call me that there had been a tragedy, a very, very unexpected accident in the office, and that a patient had offices was an office, a healthcare office, and a patient had died in the office, and I had to come back to handle all that. And this is a week after my work. A week after that, a week and a half after that, my grandmother passed away. So it was all like these deaths kind of like leading up. And unfortunately, after about 8 months, I stayed at the office for about 8 months trying to handle everything that I was the COO of the office for every single business that we had. But over the course of about 8 months, my boss kind of, he with the choices that he made. So 8 months after I literally lost my entire life as I knew it, I no longer had a job either. Oh, that, those 8 months worth of time was really, really a huge wake up call for me to kind of pay attention to not just myself going on in the world, to, the possibilities around us, to what I was really doing. So I wasn't happy working for that, and everything had transpired. So that October of 2014 was really probably the biggest wake up call. And that I wasn't going to go back to a corporate job, that I was going to start my business. And that was really the start of where I am right now.
Every time I hear the story,
and I know that's a lot.
I mean, I've heard it, and it's still like an intense story, so we're going to give all the listeners or all the people watching like 3 minutes to collect themselves, because it's a lot.
It is.
But what really stands out for me, is, your resilience in all of this, and how you came to reframe everything and say, wait, this is a wake-up call, like not, I'm sure you had those moments, and you can talk about them if you wish, where you were like, life sucks, this is, awful, and rightfully so. I mean, the succession of events is just devastating. But I like how you did come to that realization that there was a purpose for this, and you were going to make the best of the situation. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Everything was unfolding, and certainly, it was on a smaller scale with all the other events that had happened, getting pregnant early, getting cancer. My son had I call it a near-death experience. I had a really, really bad horseback riding accident in 2012. But really the and I wasn't, like, I say it now that, that I got through it and all this stuff, but I wasn't this okay back then. Around this, 9-10 figure business that I ran, this multi-million-dollar businesses, but I wasn't okay. I wasn't taking care of my children. Were having a very hard time, and I literally felt like I was walking around in this dark cloud for months. I felt existing, and it really took me. It wasn't just me getting. You never get over it. So there's things that happen to death, whether it's cancer, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a loss of a job. There's things you never get over. You don't that you're able to move forward. So I didn't move on from my dying. I was able to move forward from that. But the way I had to enter into this very, very dark stage, and I say dark, it was a very dark time for me. There was time I didn't want to keep going. I didn't want to have to go to work. I didn't even want to have to get up in the morning. And one of the things is that luckily I had these who needed me to. I had a job with over 60 people who depended on me to show up every single day. But deep inside, I kept questioning, and this is where it led to what I'm doing now, because I kept questioning. It's unbelievable to me that Mike that he was no longer around, that he just literally one day I would never speak to him again. I would never talk to him again. And I wasn't okay with that. Trying to get myself back and on the path of where I was supposed to be. I also took this journey, and that's the only way of really uncovering what our entire world means. Like, where do people go when they die? Like, why are we even here if all we do is we have some great experiences and then we die? What is the purpose of all of this? And I was never a religious person. I definitely was spiritual, and I'm still not a religious person, but I am by far extremely spiritual. And so after spending 12 hours a day working, taking care of my kids, I really just decided to really dig deep into doubt things. So I started exploring who psychics were. I started exploring what mediums were, what shamans were, in being able to explore those and really finding out concrete evidence and concrete proof and really examples, and just the information that I needed allowed me to slowly step out of the darkness that basically it took me a good 2 months to even venture out to even search for something. For 2 months, I literally just, like, I don't remember them. I just found this trauma that had happened.
Okay, so we were having some internet difficulties, so I've switched to a different location, and I want to go back to the very important conversation that we were having with Carrie about how to handle those challenging circumstances in life. And obviously, she is quite the expert on this topic. So Carrie, if you wouldn't mind, would you tell us, or what's your advice for somebody who's going through a really trying time, and how maybe they can reframe things, or, you know, what steps they can take to get to that other side, to see that light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, so absolutely. Something that, you know, that I think it's really important that everybody is aware of, and that everybody thinks about on a constant basis, is something that I've learned over the months of, you know, in the years since Mike has passed, because it really has been, it's been almost 3 years now, is that things don't happen to us, but they happen for us. And by that, I mean that there's always something good that comes out of a bad situation. And when you're in the moment, it's very hard to see that. But when you're able to take a step outside of the moment, so take a step outside and look back at what you've been through, that you'll be able to see that everything that you've been able to accomplish, that you've been able through, that there's always a lesson and a blessing in it. And the lesson is always something that you need to learn, or something that has been helped you to grow. And the blessing is something, it's like a gift. And I say that because I truly do believe that. So let's take Mike's death, for example. That's what we've been talking about, and that is probably one of the biggest thing that has happened to me. So my lessons in Mike's passing was that there is stuff that's much bigger than I am, than you are, than we all are. And with him passing, I was able to recognize and open up to not just, also able to open up to my abilities. I was able to realize what I've been doing my entire life since I was a child, which is channeling and communicating with and people who passed. But also it allowed me to accept that, to embrace that. So and I look at it almost as a gift. So not by any means that I'm happy that Mike passed. If I could make him come back, and I would absolutely. But the gift that he was able to give me, it's unmistakable and it's undeniable. There's no way that the things that I've learned since he's passed, that I would ever have been able to learn them in the magnitude that I have if he had stayed here. So it's really your ability to take every situation that you've been in, every situation that you've overcome, every situation that you're facing right now, and to be able to learn to say, okay, so what can I learn from this? Because things happen in our life, and I'm talking about even everyday occurrences. So, you know, if there's somebody you keep getting into a relationship, it's not the right relationship, or you keep having the same confrontation with your spouse, or the same issues with your children over and over and over again, it's a sign that you take a step back and really evaluate what's going on in your life. So what is something you can learn? Is it the way that you're speaking to your kids, that they blow off, they lose it and they start screaming? Is it the way that you're reacting to their behavior? So there's always a lesson to learn. And then there's always a gift. In that lesson, there's always a gift. And when you're able to find that, you're able to redirect your perspective of the situation that you're in. So you're able to say, okay, this is a horrible situation and it's very frustrating, and it's something that I didn't want to happen. However, it was able to teach me this. It was able to give me this. It was able to help me to grow, to move forward, to be a better mom, to be a better person, to step into the power that you have inside you, to step into your purpose, whatever that gift is. But to be able to look at it and say, oh, okay, this is what I got from that. It changes the whole view of it. So it doesn't have this really bitter, sour, heartbreaking feeling. The sadness is still there, yes. But you have a different perspective of it. And I know, and that's a way to get through something when you're on the flip side of it. But when you're really in the moment, you really want to, and this takes time and it takes practice, but you really want to be able to step outside of yourself. So just this morning, I was speaking a really hard time with something that's going on with one of her children. And it's absolutely understandable. If anybody was in her situation, you would feel the same way. But one of the ways that we are able to best help with our spouse, our partner, a friend, our children, is to be able to remove ourselves from the emotional attachment of it. And how I explain to do this is to really be an observer. So to really be able to detach from the situation and observe what's going on, observe how they're acting, observe why they're acting, observe your part in that, because no matter what happens in our life, we always play a part in it. There is never something that happens to you, around you, about you, that you do not have some part in it. So to be able to step back and see what is my part in this, it will be able to help you to look at it from a different perspective. It will take that emotional turmoil out of it. And I know I come at things from a different way, but one of the things I really do tell myself is, my children now are 16, 13, and 11. And they have things that go on in their life. But one of the things that I'm able to do is to step back and say, okay, so they are my children, but also spirits. They're also souls. They're also these humans that have come here to learn their own lessons, to make their own mistakes, and to carve their own path out in the world. So me as their mother, if I try to jump into everything that they have going on and to solve all their problems, I'm this. So by being able to take a step back and observe the situation for what it is and what's going on, I'm able to offer them guidance instead of fixing their problems for them. I'm able to guide them in fixing them themselves. And I think it's so important that we all do it that way, that we don't look to somebody to solve our problems, but we look for people for guidance on ways to get through them, or to maybe have a different perspective or a different view of what's going on.
That is like some intensely, seriously awesome information right there. Like that whole succession, it's so important. And I really like how you nailed the situation with the kids. That they are their own souls, their own spirits, to learn their own lessons, and our interference is really interference in them learning what they need to learn, and being able to guide them will be much more effective for us and for them on their journey. So do you have something that you do, because of course you're a mom and you're human, so when you find yourself in a confrontation, whether it is with one of your kids or with somebody else, or you feel that you are being triggered, how do you then go from being triggered to then becoming the observer?
Sure. So this is actually a little bit difficult for me, because over the past 2 years, what I've had to learn to do is to have a ridiculous amount of, because I was one of those immediate gratification people. I was also one of those, because I had such a high power job, I was one of those control people who wanted everything to be, perfect. I wanted my kids to have possible. I wanted them to be really well behaved, and they're very smart and very well behaved. But what I've also learned is that we each are here for a different reason. So we each have different paths. We also each have a different perspective of what life is. So who's to say that getting those high grades even matters in the long run? So what I've really realized is that so many things that I thought really mattered and were really important in life, whether it's the good grades, the acting extremely appropriate, the doing what I said for my kids to do, really doesn't matter in the long run. It really doesn't matter, because when we're trying to mold our children into who we think they're supposed to be, we're limiting who they really are supposed to be. So one of the things that has really helped with my style and who I am, and if anybody, for everybody who knows me, I don't yell. I never yell at my children. Lose it on my children, and several things have helped me. One is patience. So I've learned that I'm not always right. So if I want something to happen, and I want it to happen a certain way with my kids, why is my way the right way and their way's not? So I've been able to really, when I talk to my children, I talk to them to understand them. So I want to know why they feel a certain way. I want to know why they're doing stuff a certain way. And I really step back and try to look at the situations that have happened before this, so I can understand why they repetitively do something. So I listen to truly understand them, and I really do give them a voice, because just because I'm 20 years older than my daughter is, doesn't mean that my opinion or my voice is any more important than hers is. And when you can take yourself out of, I'm the parent and my way goes and what I say is the right way, then it allows for such a deeper connection and a deeper understanding. I am the first one any of my children turn to tell me about a good grade they've got, a bad grade they've got, situations in school, because they know that I won't lose it on them. I won't jump off the handle. I will listen to their perspective, their side of it, and really to understand. And when I find myself in a situation where something they're doing is really bothering me, I look at my part in it. So recently, it was a Sunday night and we're very busy with sports in school, and none of my children had finished their homework. And we're talking, it's like a 9 o'clock on a Sunday. And that's when we all kind of settle down. So I took a step back and I realized that, I was frustrated with them for not doing their homework, but what part did I play in this? Well, for one, their schedules are jam-packed, which is both their doing and mine. And two, I never once said to them, hey, did you guys do your homework? Do we have homework? And I even planned things for them to do, like dinner at their grandmother's house and all this stuff. And I know there's some parents who will say, but they're older, why do you have to remind them? But let's selves. There's so many times that I'll forget something. And if I had someone to just say to me, hey, did you remember to call that person like you said you were going to? Or did you remember to do this? Then my life would have been a lot smoother. So it's not about my kids doing the right thing. It's about helping them and guiding them to be who we want them to be. So it doesn't matter how often I have to remind them on a Sunday afternoon to do homework. It takes 2 seconds. But when you're in that pattern of, but I shouldn't have to remind them because this is what they should do. Why do we want children to be perfect when we ourselves are not perfect? So I think it's having this deeper understanding for where your children come from, why they're acting a certain way, what they've seen, because a lot of the times we want kids to be respectful. We want them to not yell. We want them to not hit. We want them to sit and do what we tell them to do, yet do that. I know a lot of people who scream at their children because they're doing something wrong, and then they get upset when their kids scream. But you're showing them exactly what to do. So I treat my children exactly how I would want to be treated. So if I do something wrong, I wouldn't want someone to yell at me. And that's why I do not yell at my children for doing something wrong. I treat them exactly how I would want to be.
That's so important. We really do hold our children on a much higher level, to a much higher standard than we hold ourselves sometimes. Like, we expect our 4-year-old to sit at the table and have perfect table manners. And yet, we get up every 5 minutes to, check the phone, to, get something over there, that's a really important thing. And I like how you said that, when you find yourself being triggered, and it's actually, interestingly enough, something that I teach and that I speak about a lot. It's like, turn the mirror on yourself. Like, what is it that's triggering you, and what about this is upsetting you? You know, and it really very often doesn't have anything to do with your child,
Right.
how you think it's going, like how it impacts you. You know, even something as,
Right.
you know, a child being violent or hitting, you know, you're afraid,
Right.
even a child like being, I don't know if I think it cut out there, violent or hitting, you are afraid of how it's going to impact them, on what kind of parent you're going to appear to be if you have a child who hits people, and how it's going to affect the siblings in the house. You know, I have 3 boys, so this is something that we talk about, you know, that comes up a lot, is, you know, like how much of the violence is important, you know, as far as like getting all that stuff out, and how much of it is going to potentially be problematic, and really, you know, doing that balance. But yeah, I mean, if you are yelling at your kids, I love that. You are showing them that that is a way to handle your frustration or your anger. So when they are frustrated and angry, how can we expect them to not yell? You know?
And I think a lot of kids hold a lot of things inside because they're worried about how we as parents are going to react to it. But when they know they can tell you anything, and that you're going to listen, to understand them and not judge them, because that's what we're doing. Even though we're parents and we're supposed to be teaching them and disciplining them, when we're talking to them or saying the things that they've done wrong, we're really judging them. In their eyes, we're judging what they've done. And that limits the availability that you have to them, because the next time maybe they're not going to come and tell you about it. So by being able to not judge them, and by listening freely and letting them talk, and helping, you know, I really believe that every experience that you have is a learning experience, and being able to show your kids that, in redirecting. So for little kids, it's redirecting their focus. And it's also finding out what is bothering them. So what's going on that they're seeing, what's going on that they're feeling once you have this. If a child hits often, then there might be something that's inside of him that's really angry. So where can you find that, recognize what's going on to make that child angry? And the first way you have to do is really to get them to open up and talk to you, and listen to them. In the better that you're understanding to them and don't jump at them for what they do, the more that they're going to open up and talk to you.
That's wonderful. I like how we kind of like went from, you know, like these, you know, how to deal with mega tragedy, really, and then, you know, into parenting. And I do feel very strongly that the chaos of parenting, the chaos of motherhood often can feel overwhelming, and like you're constantly being challenged. So I really think this was an important conversation, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
So welcome.
And tell us about your story. So as we're wrapping up, why don't you tell the audience where they can find you if they're interested in working with you or getting to know more about you?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook, Instagram, all under my name. So it's just Carrie Cardozo, and same with my website. My website is www.carriecardozo.com. And something that I have for your listeners, I thought it would be really fun. It'll give them an idea of who I am, what I do, and also help them, is I created things for them. So they're freebies. So one of them is a meditation, and it's I called it a a peaceful mama meditation. So it will help them when they're in that situation of, you know, of whether it's an upset child, whether it's a teacher at school, because we've all been there, that, you know, a teacher with a situation, or with a parent, just what it is that's bothering them. So that's the number one. And number two, it's called the Obstacle Clarity Guide. So a lot of the times you and I spoke about how to get through an obstacle. So I have a clarity guide that will give you 6 steps to help talk you through how to get through when you're in the midst of that obstacle. They're free to download for anyone who listens to this, and it can be found on my website at carriecardozo.com /peaceful mama. So you
Great.
can just sign up there and download both of those. So the meditation and the guide.
I will link that at the bottom of the comments. Once I post this, I will put underneath the comments where they can link to that, so they can just press the button. And that's awesome. So the meditation, is it an audio meditation, or is it like how is the?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. That's incredible. I love.
No, it's an audio. Yeah, it's an audio. So it's one that I talk you through. You can do it, and it'll be one that you can remember how to do, so that if you're in a situation and you're, at the park or at the grocery store, and this thing is really, you can really sit in your car and just do it really quick. And it's just to help bring you back to your center and to recognize that, and to power. So, because a lot of times when we're in a situation, we give our power to the situation. So it allows us to take our power back and not give it to the situation. So, and if anybody has any questions, I am in the group, so I would be more than welcome to answer questions. They can tag me in a question, and I would be more than welcome to help them out with anything.
That's fantastic. You, just this talk alone, you have given us so much to think about, and these free gifts are amazing. So I just want to say again, thank you so much. And I probably will invite you back, because this was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I thank you so much. I've had such a blast, and I just want everyone to know that no matter what their situation is, whether it's just dealing with a 2-year-old or whether somebody has passed away, they are all equal importance. And it is hard when you're going through how in depth it is. It's very hard. So I just want everyone to understand that you don't have to have a death or cancer for it to be important, that anything that disrupts your life is important. So
thank you. Thank you for that clarification, because at the time when you're experiencing whatever, when you're having the 12th tantrum of your 3-year-old, or when your, oldest son tells you he hates you, they feel equally impactful in your life. And that's very true. We don't have to diminish those things just because we're not dealing with something as, tragic as a death or an illness. So thank you for that distinction. And
oh, you're so welcome.
That's it for us here. Hold on, I'll just put the gallery view so we can see both of us and we can wave goodbye. Thank you so much for being here for another episode of Happy Mama. We'll be back next week, and we'll see you next time.